Oh, I would do that. You know, I've actually seen pictures of pottery of looked like Indians or something spearing dinosaurs. Have you ever seen anything like that?
Oh yes, yes. You get some of those. I mean, checking out on their point of origin is a little difficult, but you can actually go, say, to Berkeley University. You know, I mean, it's
Right.
your most left-wing campus on the planet, and it's an unbelievable place. But in their anthropology collection there, you will see carvings from the Indian cultures, the native cultures there, that you would probably swear in a stack of Bibles that's dinosaurs. I've looked at them. I said, they, for all the world, they look like dinosaurs.
Right.
And you will find that in most cultures around the planet, their traditional stories, whether written, drawn, or oral, all include big monsters. We have them in Australia, the Aborigines. I was up in the archives checking on the death of the first white man in sort of southern outback Queensland, and the story the coroner recorded was the local Aboriginal chief told him not to get in the water because the big monster would get him, and so he died. And the description of the monster is something like a huge dinosaur. So, yeah, you've got those in all cultures.
Yeah. Have you ever read, cover to cover, The Origin of Species?
I don't say I've read it cover to cover. I've usually read it from the index backwards, checking up on everything. But I'm reasonably familiar with the majority of the and the descent of man and things like that.
Is there anything in that book that would lead you to believe that Charles Darwin, in the back of his mind, really didn't believe what he was saying?
Having been to where Charles Darwin lived, a lot of things, I mean, one of the first seminars I ran in Australia had Charles Darwin's great-grandson present. And it was interesting to get to know some of the family and to find out details since then of what was actually going on in his mind. Unknown to most people, Charles Darwin trained as an Anglican minister, a theologian. He had a master's degree in theology. B, he went to church basically every Sunday of his life. He was in England. He went to church up until his favourite daughter, Annie, died. And then he continued to go to church, but he never again went back inside. He blamed God for his daughter's death. You know, how could there be a good God if my poor innocent little girl died? And it's only after that he wrote his book on the origin of species. So, to quote sort of his great-great-grandson who wrote this up in one of the big science journals, that Charles Darwin set his back against Christianity, and only then was he free to write the origin of the species. So my suggestion is we should rename the origin of the species with a subtitle, My Revenge by Charles Darwin. So yes, I'm pretty sure he knew what he was doing. He deliberately did it, and he knew that if people accepted it, it would make a society that rejected the biblical account of creation and all the moral accountability of God, so that ultimately you'd have a society which would say, well, sex must have evolved, homosexuality must be okay, God's irrelevant.
How would the concept of right and wrong evolve?
There is no answer to that, because in the end you have to dismiss right and wrong. You have only acceptable and unacceptable, and you will have noticed in your lifetime that public government schools have gone from this is right and that is wrong to, here is what we tolerate, and anything else we discriminate against. They won't use that word, but that's what they're doing. So anything is right or wrong anymore, because you put God out of the equation. Without God, there's no concept of good or bad or anything. So it really is a basic moral issue. Hence, when you find God giving Moses the Ten Commandments, he's really saying, here's the things that I say are right. I've got the right to say this because I made the place, and here's the rules about how it works. If you follow the Maker's instructions, it will work okay. If you don't, the price of sin is death. Your society will decay and self-destruct.
John, as we are here now, it seems as if the genetic code from its original would be improving. Do you think that to say the evolutionists in general would believe that we have stopped improving, stopped evolving?
I upset one Australian evolutionist very much when he actually, I'm sure he didn't really intend it, but he said to the Australian press, for all practical purposes, man has stopped evolving. And of course I pounced on that because that is the observation. You and I are not evolving. We are human beings as far as history records. We've always had a head at one end and 2 feet at the other and arms with hands on either end, and we've been more or less humans. Some of us are a bit darker, some of us are a bit lighter, some of us have got dark or light spots, but that's about the only variation you actually see. So for all practical purposes, our DNA is either producing its own kind or, sadly, since you were a kid, allergies have increased, diabetes increased. We are degenerating, and very fast at the moment.
John, if we could leave the Bible out of this next question, so you don't answer it from the Bible, but then maybe follow up we can have you answer out there. I'm not going to exclude it permanently. I'm just for this particular question. Is there anything in the fossil record, anything that you've seen, any book that you read, well, not books, let's leave books completely out. I want research, scientific data, research, archaeology, evolutionary trends that would lead one to see or to know what the human purpose is on Earth? Is there anything in the fossil record that indicates why we are here?
Since fossils are dead, and dead is philosophically irrelevant, the answer is no. You find nothing at all. Originally, the geologists arranged the fossils in an ascending order, but then Aristotle did that, 2,000 years ago with living creatures, and the end result is the same. But then you get the Darwinists coming along and deliberately saying simple is at the bottom, complex is at the top. It's the ascent of man concept, and now people have realized, oh, hang on, woo, if evolution is true, there's no actual order. It doesn't matter where you are on this list. It doesn't matter whether you live or you die. It doesn't matter whether you're extinct or not. Hence, most evolutionists are inconsistent when they want to protect the baby seals, because it really doesn't matter if the ice melts and the polar bears die off. Who cares? There's no purpose in it. So simply, when you look at the fossils, there's not a hint as to why we're here at all, because fossils are dead, and dead kills everything.
Okay. And what's your personal belief as to why we're here?
Okay, well, I became a Christian through reading a textbook by an atheist, so God obviously has a good sense of humor. And, that sort of prompted me to say this guy's arguments are crazy from a purely scientific point of view, and to pick up a Bible to see what it said. And obviously the biblical position is that God made us. We are here because he wanted us to be here. He wants us to apologize for our sin. He wants us to know him and to make him known. And I've got to say that is my purpose. Since I became a Christian, I've found such a blessing out of that. I want others to enjoy it too.
Okay. Just a thought. When a creature would crawl out of the primordial goo to, say, develop lungs, wouldn't there have to be a bunch of dead creatures on the shore before that ever would happen? I mean, how many dead things would there have to be before one actually grew a lung and kept on going?
Well, I gave a lecture in a college once, and most of the lecturers there at the college were really against me being there. So they'd posted up big posters, and on one of them they had a picture of these beached whales saying, see, they're still trying to come back onto the land. And you're quite right, they can't do it. So unless you've got everything you need in order to get out on the land, you are dead in the water, quite literally. So again, you're back to the idea of, an integral design is necessary. You've got a minimum number of bits that have to be able to work for you to do it. You can't do it unless everything is in place, like